You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, you know, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Nonprofit U, a forum where nonprofit stakeholders can share lessons learned and discuss the latest developments in the industry. My name is Valerie, Leonard, your host. I'm a consultant to nonprofits, and I specialize in community and organizational development. I help them make a stronger impact to their clients and communities, and you can find Nonprofit U on Facebook and Twitter. I encourage you to comment early and often using the hashtags NonprofitU, Door of Hope, or Transforming Lives. You can also leave comments on blogtalkradio.com/NonprofitU. The chat room is open, and you can post comments and questions. In order to use the chat room, you must open a listener-only account, and you'll find a link to open the account on the episode page. You can also email me questions at consulting@valeriefleonard.com or send messages through Facebook and Twitter. You can find a Nonprofit U fan page on Facebook, and the Twitter account is @NonprofitU. We'll be taking questions by phone and from our chat room at about the half-hour mark. The call-in number is 347-884-8121, and feel free to post comments on our Nonprofit U page as well. You will need to like already in order to post comments. Today's episode is the Transformative Power of Hope. We'll discuss the work of the Door of Hope Rescue Mission, the impact of discipleship on the lives of the residents and surrounding communities, and the ways that Door of Hope is increasing their organizational capacity. Again, we encourage you to call in with questions and to participate in live chat at about the half-hour mark. The call-in number is 347-884-8121. Nonprofit professionals and community stakeholders are especially encouraged to call in and share your stories. Our guest for today is David Pendleton. He's the executive director of the Door of Hope Rescue Mission on Chicago's South Side. So, David, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on Nonprofit U today. It's indeed an honor to have you. Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to work with the Door of Hope Rescue Mission?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Valerie. It's a pleasure to be back. I have been a member of the Oakdale Covenant Church, of which the former chairman, Harry Thomas, was also a member. Mm-hmm. And I, being an avid Bible student and Sunday school leader, co-chair of men's ministry, had developed a passion for it. I myself have a background in banking and consulting. And while a member of Oakdale, the chairman gave a brief description of Door of Hope Rescue Mission. He had been totally ignorant to the environment, but I was intrigued. So I got this contact information, and God touched my heart, and I thought, Lord has put it on my heart to make myself available for whatever it is you need. And that has stuck with me ever since. I became a board member soon afterwards, and in these 12 years have seen Door of Hope transition into what it is today.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, David, for that. And along those lines, can you tell us a little bit more about the mission and how the organization started and evolved over time?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. It was formed in November 1954 by the Pacific Garden Mission as a plant. And at the time, we were on 46th and State, 2 locations on that very block. The first one was next to a nightclub called Bucket of Blood. And that place burned down and, of course, took with it. we wound up relocating across the street for a short time, and then the current building we have, Pacific Garden Mission, purchased a storefront, and we've been there since '75. As times changed, the needs changed because the former Skid Row, West Madison, and downtown, and the homeless climate, it required a different response from Mercy Missions to garner most of the cheap hotels that enabled and fostered that type of climate, especially for transients or substance abusers even that were functional. So today, what's lost on a lot of good hearts is a shift as to why people are homeless or transforming even, and what they can do to positively impact that environment. I don't know if that's what's being taught anywhere, but missions groups, church auxiliaries are typically stocked with older men and women, people who have carried for years, since the 60s and 70s, and there's no succession. So same thing's happening here at Door of Hope. The board was in their 70s and 80s, and here I am, a young pup at 50. So, well, I was 47. But still, the closest person to my age was in their 60s.
Wow.
So we needed to change. We were aging, we weren't shifting or transforming ourselves, and the mission reflected us. So our evolution had to be more discipleship-based, community-driven, especially since we were no longer on the PGM umbrella. We needed a program to serve those we knew with a clear message and conscience.
Okay, so you guys are a spinoff from the Pacific Garden Mission, and you're now independently run. Is that correct? I just want to clarify.
Yeah, we were a church plant. We were a mission plant by PGM. Yeah.
Okay. So you joined the board in 2005, as I understand, and about 5 years later, you became their executive director. And, one of the things that you noted when you came aboard that organization was that it was overstaffed, the programs didn't always match the needs of the residents. And, I'm trying to get a sense for what were some of the first things you did to begin to transition the organization to where it is now?
Well, young eyes and hearts beat a little differently, and the organization had aged and gotten out of touch with the men we serve. With me being closer to the men's age, I felt more passionate for more direct Christian development as our primary focus. So a review of all parties involved directly with our residents as well as better requirements for our residents prompted the need for our board to examine itself and make necessary changes. And we've done that twice. But also the appearance of the building. The building was filthy. It was filthy. It was vermin-ridden. We had a tree next door that we called the I forget what the branch, but the burning bush, because that's where everybody got high. And ministers of the community, our alderman did not like, Dorothy Tillman didn't like us. Pat Dow had to learn to love us. Thank God she did. And that was part of my transition. We had the right intention, but we didn't have the tools. We didn't have the soldiers. And when you got 80 people in a building this small, a lot of unchecked substance abuse, violence, long-term occupancy, we needed to get a firmer handle on what we were doing. And a lot of people felt they were entitled to be here, still do. Saw this as their home for decades even, and I could find a precedent for that, especially biblical, since we're a faith-based organization. What's sad is that most visiting ministries expected a crowd of 80 people, and they weren't focused on the results and the lives of the men so much as seeing that this is where the training of their missionaries and ministers would have been helpful. You can't expect a altar call every month to be no less than 5 or 10% of the people that are here. You don't get that at your home church. But you have the people who would get moved every other week, and I just felt that was a mockery of God, and then we couldn't continue with that.
Oh, my goodness. You know what? I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for your transparency. All too often when we speak before our peers, especially when we're sharing lessons learned, we don't like to share our challenges. And, I really, really appreciate, your transparency.
Thank you.
Okay.
There was one thing I wanted to add. In dealing with, we're in the middle of a bedroom community. There are 3 flats and really nicely well-kept graystones on this block and behind us. And we had to be civically conscious. We had to blend in with our community. We could not stand out. We had to blend in because public safety is part of the ministry. So we definitely had to change that.
Mm-hmm. And you guys have done an awesome job, I might add.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to remind our listening audience that you're listening to Nonprofit U, and we're speaking with David Pendleton. David is the Executive Director for the Door of Hope on Chicago's South Side. We will take questions from our listening audience as well as our chat room at about the 30-minute mark. The call-in number is 347-884-8121, and you can also feel free to leave any comments that you'd like on our Facebook page. In order to make a comment on the Facebook page, obviously you have to like us. David, just in general, you've been there quite a while and you've seen a lot of things. What would you say are some of the greatest issues impacting men in transition? And have these issues actually changed over time, or are they really the same problems, different day?
Well, I would think the greatest issue impacting men in transition is identity. Most have not come to acknowledge their value to God, man, society, and effectively apply what they know, what they've learned, even what they should repent. Another chief antagonist is unemployment and underemployment. Most temporary agencies send poor people far away from their community at their expense to travel hustlers. They have these travel hustlers that charge you like $50 and $60 a week to take you to the suburban locations on top of public transportation costs. Throw them in normal work expenses such as clothing, shoes, goggles, gloves, lunch. There's definitely going to be a lot more of the month left at the end of the money. And it's a vicious cycle, which is really depressing for anybody. I don't care where your address is, where you lay your head. If you are paying basically everybody else but you, there's a problem. And it's almost impossible to pay rent and have any meaningful resemblance of quality of life, under those circumstances. We could use some expert input specific to these needs and not leading to the same hole, because most of the time it takes us, it's just a round robin of the same error.
Okay, and to that end,
What was the second
question? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to figure out, my first question was, what were some of the greatest issues that impact men in transition? And then my follow-up is, what are some of the lessons that you've learned over time?
Over time, God, there's been a lot of them.
Yes.
The biggest lesson I learned is to be patient with patience. It doesn't have an expiration date. I think that's the greatest one. People need to be listened to intentionally. And when you learn how to listen to God's people, it's because you've learned how to listen to God. If He's not worried, you shouldn't be worried. The main lesson I've also learned in terms of running an organization is be careful who you let in. Every smile is not warm. And you have to really, really vet your people well. You have to be transparent with them, and you have to expect transparency from them. They have to have a complete understanding of what's expected. Prayer life. You're dead in the water without it. Your prayer life should be strong. Your prayer life, not just individually, but corporately. And if I send a letter out to you, believe me, I'm asking you to pray first, and then, of course, include a check. But, we need your prayers. That is what gets us through, prayers, and it's a staple even in our program. But my lessons learned: be kind. Be kind. Always be kind. Everybody's not going to understand the circumstance as well as you do, and you're in the middle of it. So, yeah, that's a definite lesson, and be kind.
Yes. I want to go back to the comment you made, and I think it's universal. It doesn't just go for tenant selection or client selection. In terms of what you said about making sure that you're careful about who you bring on your team, who you bring aboard, that is applicable for board development, advisory board development, hiring. Fit and culture are critical. If you don't have the right mix, you'll never achieve your goals. Or if you do, it'll be very, very difficult. So I'm really glad that you reminded us, of that lesson that I think is, critical in all that we do.
Yes, it is. It's very critical. Otherwise you'll wind up with little fiefdoms within the organization, and everybody's asking who moved their cheese. And I think that goes on in every organization. But you have to manage it coming in. If you need a small group to start with, if you're blessed with 2 or 3 people to begin with, and you get that synergy going, the 4th person comes in and sees order. They see order as the culture. So it is very hard to break that 3-stranded cord. And it's the same in a lot of things that I participate in. I look for where's the order in it, and that's where I'm going to be.
Okay, so speaking of lessons learned, and if you had to share a list of 3 do's and 3 don'ts as they relate to managing programs for men in transition, what might that list include?
Well, top of the list would probably dignify and respect anybody in transition. They're moving just like you are, hopefully in the same direction, just at different speeds. Men should be treated as men, not property. I see too much and hear too much from people with the them approach, which is really oppressive. Don't ever consider a person as being transitioned back into society. That's also offensive. As though this is not part of society. Don't put rescue missions part of society. It also comes out in your ministry where your heart is. So apply the same love and diligence to the them as though every act was performed in a mirror and watched by God. Always have time to be needed but not abused. Develop mutual understanding about time and time management. Men tend not to seize the day. And it's just a fact. We don't. And it's a grave error not to address this, to move forward without a healthy prayer life. You're going to need it more than anything else, as I said earlier. If you can get a man to understand the power and essence of prayer, especially in partnership, you've done a tremendous work. Because we're Lone Rangers. We're either Napoleon Solo or Han Solo. We just like being solo. And it doesn't help, So.
And you know what, too, conversations that you and I have had in passing, in the work that we do, I think is really critical, some of the language that we adopt, and me being a female or a woman or a lady, so to speak, sometimes I have a tendency, I guess, in my nurturing nature, to look at the younger men as, as boys. I'll use that terminology, affectionately, but you always caution me, Valerie, that's very, very patronizing. You don't look at young men and call them boys. It doesn't matter how affectionate you are. That's our problem today. Would you care to expound on that?
There's never I'll say the Bible, we remove that from because, everybody doesn't believe what it says. So there's no instruction manual out there on manhood nor womanhood. So it makes it even tougher when it's not acknowledged throughout their formative years, especially 7 to 10 years old, social skills, so that they take responsibility for what they say and do. And as they come of age, 12, 13, 14 years old, they're more responsible. So they're not confused about manhood besides the birthday. You're not walking around talking about I'm grown at 18 and you're irresponsible. You're not 45 years old talking about I'm a grown man and you really are not responsible. So, I think we all need to be cautious in how we deal with younger people because they need to have that responsible and accountable language spoken into their lives while they're growing, so that by the time they do come of age, it is already known in their heart what it is they need to do. They take responsibility for their actions. Not me, it doesn't live in your house. Not me being, this. Not me. Who did this? Not me.
Right. Okay, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks not me.
All right. I want to remind our listening audience that you're listening to Nonprofit U, and we're speaking with David Pendleton. David is the Executive Director of the Door of Hope. We will take questions from our listening audience in chat room at about the 30-minute mark. The call-in number is 347-884-8121. Again, that number is 347-884-8121. Okay, so David, what I have noticed, from my work, that some programs tend to depend very heavily on public dollars and maximize the number of clients, but your approach is a little bit different. You have been focusing on maintaining private capitalization as opposed to public funding. And when I talk about public funding, I'm talking about funding from the city, state, and county. And then you are also very conscious about the number of people that you allow into your facility. You're not trying to just bring in people so you can have the numbers. You seem to focus more on quality. That's been my observation with your program versus some other programs. I just want to get a sense for what drove these decisions for you early on. Is this something that you started tackling when you first started, or did it take a while for you to, quote unquote, get it, after you became executive director?
Well, the Lord is working on everybody involved: donors, volunteers, residents, board members, me, and He's growing us all up. We're maturing. Quite frankly, all of us are. And what I found in 1 Thessalonians, it's even on a document that I give the men every month. It's God is not destined us for wrath, but to obtain salvation through our Lord Jesus Christ, who died for us so that whether we are awake or asleep, we might live with Him. Therefore, encourage one another and build one another up just as you are doing. We ask you, brothers, to respect those who labor among you and are over you in the Lord and admonish you, and to esteem them very highly in love because of their work. Be at peace among yourselves. And including that, and on top of that, I'm sorry, I read the wrong passage. Now, concerning brotherly love, you have no need for anyone to write to you, for you yourselves have been taught by God to love one another. For that indeed is what you are doing to all the brothers throughout Macedonia. But we urge you, brothers, to do this more and more, and to aspire to live quietly, to mind your own affairs, and work with your hands as we instructed you, so that you may walk properly before outsiders and be dependent on no one. This organization should pretty much run with those who believe in what we do. And not because we're dependent on it, but because we show that we can redistribute what is given to us. If we have an abundance of clothing, we need to have resources in which to remove these things to other people, to transition the clothing, transition extra food. We have partners who give us plenty of fresh produce and things like that. And what we can't preserve for ourselves, I definitely look for partners to give these things to. And it's been pretty successful. But we also proselytize here. We bring people to Christ and we disciple here. So the federal, state, and local governments don't necessarily fund that. You might have a unique HUD project that might qualify, but most public funds not for what we do primarily. Now, they might provide refrigerators and things like that for the kitchen. They might provide some bedding or some things for the dormitory. But, that's staffing specific to something other than that. You might get some, but 80% of the money out there is private anyway and foundational. So it's not that I would see that as something I would seek. Anyway, the real money is in private donors and the foundations who have rescue missions in their heart. And then that lesson should also be taught in the frugality of the resident and the board in how we apply funds. We've funded mission, even if it was a small amount, we still donated to missionaries and others because we believe that you give as God has prospered you. So everything does not just go to the running and operation of Norfolk Rescue Mission. We're part of the community, of the Christian community. So when you look at us, we're looking at you as neighbors. So if Valerie Leonard had a house next door, we can't have activities that compromise your purchase of your home, your investment. We are partners with you too. So I can't have guys standing out on the street or who like to do such a thing, or the guys who wander through the neighborhood and things like that. We have gained a lot of respect from the neighbors, from the police officers, from the community in general, basically following what I said about, guys who work. They mind their business, and they have respect of outsiders. I believe God's hand has been on this building ever since that verse was revealed, and we just seek to perfect that. We attend the churches in the community and outside of the community, but everybody picks their own church, and most are active in their churches and are going for worship because somebody told them to. There's not a lot that's demanded and mandated. It's just part of our culture.
That's great. That's great. I just want to remind our audience that we will be taking questions in about 4 minutes. The call-in number is 347-884-8121. Again, that number is 347-884-8121. And before I ask David the next question, I noticed that there is a caller on the line. His or her number is area code 773-682-0195. I'm going to ask David this next question, and then I will call on you and see if you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to add to the conversation. At any rate, whether you have any comments or not, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. It makes our hearts warm when we see that people are, in fact, engaged. So, David, another thing that I noticed that differentiates the Door of Hope Rescue Mission from other transitional housing facilities for men is the fact that you've decided to focus on discipleship. And I know that you touched on that a little bit. You're very intentional being residents that want to make a change in their lives. But what do you find to be some of the pros and cons of this approach? Because there are some people who say, you should take whosoever will, let them come. But, there are pros and cons. What do you say?
Well, whosoever will let them come under your household is not the same whosoever will come into the body.
Okay.
As Christians, we need to spend more time taking care of our own, and I don't think that we should, as a rescue mission, remove ourselves from that responsibility. If anything, we need to amplify it. So some of the pros, it's a mandate. That's a pro. It's a mandate to make disciples. It's a structure the residents find agreeable and life-changing. And I know it because I'm held to the exact same standards that they're held to. So a man who's trying to find peaceful transition in his life cannot be in a mixture of theologies, philosophies, and lifestyles to a point that is disturbing, which is what we had when we had 80 people in this building. There were constant fights. It was a hostile environment. It didn't work. Now we got 27 beds. We got 27 men. There's no violence. Yeah, you're going to have arguments about this or that petty stuff, but everybody is focused on getting their life together, getting their life in a direction that is suitable. And the pleasure of sound doctrine, the pleasure of seeing your life transition makes it worthwhile. You can encourage the next man, and the next man can encourage you. You develop a better relationship with your wife or your girlfriend or your baby's mother or your mom, your whomever you have relationships with. Discipleship should improve how you respond to other people. Another pro, another con. Con, I would say it ain't for everybody, and I wish it would be. I wish it could be, but it's not. It creates disheartening discussion even among other believers who want to see 80 people in this building. You know, they want the throng. They want the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they do their Sunday service on Wednesday, they feel that that's adequate, and it really does not help. What really helps is to have something that is functional, a true fellowship where you actually come in and the Lord has actually blessed you with a message rather than a canned message of drug abuse and prison, which really doesn't always apply. And, you know, it's just not what you would see on television. It is a place where if you wanted to volunteer here, you would go through an interviewing process. There'd be a vetting, same as board members or anything like that, because I don't need people to come here and sweep up and clean up and hand plates of food to the men with a sad look on their face. That does not help. What we need are people who are actively engaged in their church and are looking to partner with us in a respect that helps make this move forward, but also there's a return gift in making you a better minister or layperson at your church. We can't just take. We have to give something. There has to be a shared experience.
Right,
you know,
right.
And they got some people, no, one of the cons is because of the dynamic here, people want these code words. They want to come in. You know, I'm coming in because I want to see God, because somebody on the street told them to say that, you'll get in. But I have a very extensive interview process where, you know, I really want to know where you are. You know, you don't have to con me. Just be honest with me about what you want to do so I can be of service to you. So those are my pros and cons.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I am going to check out a caller who's online with us. He or she may or may not comment. The phone number is 773-682-0195. I'm just going to check in and see if this caller would like to make a comment.
I hope so.
Okay, caller, would you like to make a comment, or do you have a question? Okay, I take it that the caller at 773-682-0195 does not have a question or comment that he or she would like to air. Is that, I can assume that by silence. Okay, and I just wanted to let you know, too, that one of your old pals, JP, is on the line. He is chatting in our chat room. Yeah, JP Polish, yes. And he sends his regards. He is listening intently. And JP, I want to thank you so much. You are one of the strongest supporters of this podcast. I really appreciate your promoting it within your networks, on Facebook, on Twitter, word of mouth. You know, it's really, really, really encouraging, and I thank you. Okay, so David, you talk about wanting to develop a more missional ministry, and I think that's really intriguing. You know, when you say this, you talk about being a little bit more inclusive and integrated with the surrounding community, with the focus also on national and international understanding of the spread of the gospel. How are you going about doing this?
Well, that's kind of a dream. I believe there's so much potential for mission work. I believe that if it's explained properly, if there are examples or somebody's on furlough and they stopped by, I would love to have their story available for others to read, to encourage them. I mean, I know we have the marches and everything against the violence and the crime, but there's mission work to be done on the streets of Chicago and every city, St. Louis, Gary, we need the people of God to be fearless and actually walk out, get on some of these street corners, have prayer circles on these street corners, and show that the will of God is stronger than any demonic influence that we have. I believe also that internationally that there are people who could be of good service. You may not go to the most war-torn area or whatever. We wouldn't send you there. But I think that we as Christians have stopped giving the message. We go to the place to get the message, and that's where it stops, and it's really not healthy for the body. And, you know, a body will purge itself when there's something unhealthy inside of it.
Yes.
But for this to go anywhere, I have an advisory board that I consult. These men of God, men and women of God, are going to be very instrumental in it going anywhere. This is definitely not a personal enterprise. This is certainly something that would take involvement of a good number of people to move forward. But I would like to see that. I would like to see furlough centers for people who do missionary work whatsoever, so they have something to come back to, a place to re-energize, and also a familiar place, so that they have slides or a presentation to make. They've got a place to show it. They can have their captive audience as well as invitees to show that the work is definitely worthy, and it's something for all of us to consider doing some sort of field work, if it is your gifting, not to feel as though there's no place for you to go or there's no training available.
Okay, so that's interesting. So if you do mission work, do you necessarily need training, or is it enough to have a willing heart, or do you need a little bit of both?
You absolutely need training. I think most of us, when we take something somewhere, we want to take ourselves with it, and that's a no-no. It's like going to somebody's house and picking up the remote control while you're looking in their refrigerator for what you're going to eat, instead of understanding hospitality and the invitation for you to come in is not, don't bring everything along with you. So you have to be trained how to reduce yourself, how to decrease and allow God to increase. And that does take training. None of us does that naturally. Following instructions, learning the language, being polite about food that's offered. There's a lot, local customs. There's a big difference between North Longdale and 79th Street.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference between 53rd in Indiana and 55th in Indiana. So how to be watchful, how to be used, because that's your purpose, is to be used, not to use the person with whom you are a missionary to.
Excellent point, and I thank you for that.
I can go on.
So I know you can. I know you can. You've got great experience, and I really appreciate your taking the time to share it with us.
Yeah.
So I want to remind you.
I actually wish I had a couple of residents or some people who actually been here. Next time, if you invite me, I'd like to have maybe two people from here, because we have some outspoken men here who have genuine love for the Lord, they have something to say, and I'm the mouthpiece for the Hope Rescue Mission, some would say. But I think by and large, more with each passing day, I think the men of the mission have more and more to say. They have a lot to say.
And you know what? I would agree with you, and I thank you so much for taking the time to invite me to one of your fundraisers. And I definitely observed that, and listening to the men's testimony. You can go some places and see where people may say something because they were prompted to say something, if that makes sense, to give a company line. But what I felt from listening to the residents, during this fundraiser, is people were speaking from the heart. Some of the stories that I heard were so touching, and you had folks speaking who are no longer with the program. They've been reunified with their families, and you have people who are going through. And what I found to be interesting, too, is, we have a stuff about what a homeless person looks like, where a homeless person has come from, But you have a very diverse group in terms of background and circumstances. So that was a very eye-opening experience for me, and I thank you for inviting me to be a part of it.
You're welcome, and thank you for you've given us a lot of help too. Actually, on that last one, help put it together. I appreciate what you did, your sign and everything, and your participation.
Not a problem. And full disclosure, David Pendleton is one of my clients. And David, what I like about your leadership is your laser focus on doing what works. So we recently distributed a survey to your residents. And when we looked at the results, it's very clear that Europe is having a significant impact on people who come through the doors. For example, an overwhelming majority of the residents indicated that the Door of Hope Rescue Mission helps them to better develop their personal goals and objectives, and the ministries actually help them make better decisions concerning their personal lives and employment. And many of your former clients credit you with helping them reunify with their families, gain meaningful employment, and just find their purpose in life. And I think that's a very tall order, and it's something I can appreciate, because both my parents were educators in the Chicago public school system, and, just as they feel rewarded, I know I feel a reward every time I see someone who has gone through one of their, that they have taught. My mom was a typing teacher, my dad taught reading, and then he was a principal. So I'm just wondering, for you, how does that make you feel, to see that your residents have had such a powerful experience coming through, through that door of hope?
Well, I'd say it's very rewarding, although I'm tired in the work but not of it. It makes me feel great that brothers have had experience that it was a shared experience. There wasn't a lot of I and me so much as we have, and when they refer to Door of Hope, they're not referring to the organization per se. They're referring to the entire experience. It's a community collective. Type of reference. The fact that there's respect across the board, that there's love across the board, I feel great, because I feel that this is not the work of man. That this is definitely the work of a loving God. That it's acknowledged across the board that that's where everything comes from. And I'm not trying to sound like weird, but I just think that I think it's just remarkable and amazing when you can make an account from the work of God right in front of your eyes, and how it is definitely nothing but Him. So I'm overwhelmed sometimes with the fact that when God operates in a place, if you're patient enough to sit back and wait for your instructions, you will see Him work miracles.
Okay. You know what? We have comments and questions from our chat room, David. I see from JP, he says, again, thanks for relaying my greetings. There's a lot of wisdom David can and is giving me. And one question that might be helpful for the audience is, what are some of the more creative and or effective ways that have helped connect funders to the mission of what you do?
Well, that is right now.
And actually with your
challenge.
ministry, I'm sorry.
So creative ways, is this a funding question or a ministry question?
Yeah,
I make sure I can hear it clearly.
Okay, so I'm limited to what I'm reading. So basically, what are some of the more creative and or effective ways that have helped connect funders with your ministry? So, he clarified the question in the second line. Okay,
I'll answer that one. The fundraiser being here, so people can actually see what they're donating to. So they can actually feel the presence of the ministry going forward in this building. So they can actually touch with their own hands, see with their own eyes, hear with their own voices, experience Door of Hope Rescue Mission's requisite for funding, for donations. And other than that, I just need stronger board members who are willing to help in that effort, and a few other things. You know, when you're trying to build capacity for an organization, it is not more than a notion. It's more than a notion. It's very, very complicated. But once it gets going, it goes pretty good.
And two, you know, I might add, you know, one of the ways that I think that you've been effective and creative, you're using social media. You know, you have a number of discussion boards with which people can communicate directly and have conversations, you know, regarding issues that impact directly your ministry. And that's probably something you don't think about because you're, you know, always engaged. So you probably don't think of that as creative or effective. But, you know, people get to see, you know, your heart. They get to see the work that you're doing on some of those social media pages. And I think that could be very effective. And then JP also says he would totally vote for David's suggestion of not just coming back, but with some of the men from Door of Hope. So apparently two are still on the same page.
Oh, yeah. JP is a good man. He's an amazing brother.
Yes. And I thank you so much, JP, for, again, you know, contributing to the conversation, but most importantly, you know, really being a great supporter of the show. You've been very candid in your comments. You know, you helped me to improve, and I really thank you for being there, and we have to have you on again. And again, too, I want to thank J.P. Paulus. J.P. is going to be one of the presenters for a workshop that we're having in connection with the college fair with Character Centenary AME Church on October 28th, I believe, or 29th. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but the last Saturday in October of 2017, JP, who is a consultant working with organizations and with youth who want to go to college, finding financial aid and better understanding how to navigate systems, he will be one of our presenters at our college fair. This will be the last Saturday in September of 2017, and we will go from 10 o'clock until 4 o'clock. And JP, I will be in further contact with you so we can get more, so we can finalize our arrangements. But I really do want to thank you so much for what I believe is more of a ministry for you in addition to consulting. It's not just consulting for you, but it's definitely a ministry making sure that students understand how to navigate the complexities of getting financial aid, understanding how to navigate the transition from high school to college life and all that good stuff. So if you're interested in coming out to the college fair, that will be on the last Saturday in September. Last Saturday in October. Last Saturday in October, it will go from 10 o'clock until 4 o'clock at Character Centenary AME Church on the corner of 15th and Holman in Chicago. So I'm sorry I digress, but I just had to let people know about JP. So, again, David, you're really excited about Giving Tuesday. And Giving Tuesday is in November. That's the last Tuesday after, or it's the Tuesday after after Black Friday. And this year, Giving Tuesday is November 28th. So what are some of the things you're doing to prepare the Door of Hope Rescue Mission for Giving Tuesday?
I'm pretty much reaching out and preparing former and current prospective donors for the ends of the year, as well as consideration in their annual budget. So you have to reach out. You have to get plenty of notice, and you have to send plenty of asks to plenty of people so that they do know. And I want to also say that I want to have more opportunities to speak to the general public as much as I can this upcoming fiscal year. People don't really know who we are, and I don't really want to put a big sign out about who we are because that sometimes creates more problems than it does, because we're very exclusive. They find out, I don't want to be found out, and all of a sudden I've got people walking up wanting a bed, as if that's all we do. We're an overnight shelter, which we're not. So that could be one of the cons. Giving Tuesday, for me, gives me an opportunity to connect and get people more information on what we are really doing, and getting the friendly donation and getting the friendly activism of people, and maybe even if there's something in our model that will help your ministry or will help you individually, I'd be more than happy to talk with you. I'd be more than happy to share my experiences, because it's a pleasure speaking on these things.
Okay, and then, speaking of Giving Tuesday, I want people to really, really tune in to Nonprofit U from now until the end of November. A number of our shows are going to focus not only on Giving Tuesday, but some of the things that you can do as an organization to shore up your capacity. Because it's one thing to actually solicit funds in a big way, but it's another thing to actually be prepared to manage the funds and be prepared for an even bigger Giving Tuesday next year. And one of the things we do is to increase capacity. So we're going to, on October 2nd, have the folks on Nonprofit U, the folks who actually started Giving Tuesday and I'll Give. So they will do a teach-in and let people know, what Giving Tuesday is, how it started, and step by step, what are the things they need to be doing and when to prepare for Giving Tuesday and throughout the end of the year. We will also have Daniel Ash coming on. Daniel Ash is the Chief Marketing Officer for Chicago Community Trust, and Daniel is going to tell us how you tell your story. A very important part of fundraising is telling a compelling story with heroes. Sometimes you might have an antagonist, a protagonist. And when I say antagonist, that's the enemy, so to speak. And in our world, the enemy is the issues that we face as nonprofits. And then we, the protagonists, the people who are running the organization, what are we doing as heroes in order to come? So Daniel Ash is going to come to us in his own way to talk about that. And then we'll have folks from GuideStar. And GuideStar, as you know, is a national database of organizations. They have a relationship with the IRS. So every time you do a 990 or your year-end filing, there's a record that goes with GuideStar, and they show you how you can not only use the 990 to comply with the IRS, but also how you can use that 990 to market your services. And then we'll also be doing webinar Wednesdays to get people prepared for Giving Tuesday. So every Wednesday between October 11th and November 22nd, we're going to be doing webinars to show people how to engage their board, how to make the case for support. We'll even have a 30-day compliance challenge to make sure that when you're doing all of your solicitation, you're not caught with your pants down, so to speak, by not having your paperwork in order. And then we'll be doing a disclosure challenge to show folks how they can actually use the 990 to their advantage. And if you're interested in those webinars or, better understanding, what the Nonprofit U episodes are going to be about, you can email me at consulting@ValerieFLeonard.com. And I'm sorry, David, for taking so much of your time because, we're here to listen to you. But I just want to thank you so much for actually, coming to me with this idea. You shared with me that, one of the things that nonprofit leaders really, or some of the things that they really care about, are things like board development, fundraising and compliance. So at your suggestion, I started really honing, my skills and, my product offerings to make sure I'm more responsive. So I thank you so much, for your foresight in that area. So
you're welcome.
I have a couple more questions before we go. And one thing that I noticed about you is the fact that you're taking a holistic approach to sustainability. So you're not just saying, okay, give us money, donate. You're looking at fundraising. You're looking at engaging volunteers and board development. Again, those things that you told me that I really need to address more of in my consulting practice as well as nonprofit you. So can you share with us some of the strategies you're using to strengthen your organization by the end of the year and even beyond?
Well, we just began our fiscal year on September 1st. So we're in 17-18 now. And
not 17-18, 2018.
No, 2017-2018.
Oh, I thought you said 17-18 as in the year 17-18. Okay.
No,
Never mind.
No, we just closed. But the year currently it started out a lot more aggressive, and I see a wind of change there. I'm pretty proactive and reactive more than decidedly strategic, by the way. So I need strong board members for me to be strategic, because it takes to carry a plan out. It takes more than one or two people, actually more than three. But still, good heads, a good heart, and a compelling story has to be broadcast. And strategic-wise, I think the more I speak to people and give them a feeling of involvement and engagement, I think that's taking us in the proper direction, because we are community-minded. Not just community-based, we're community-minded. And a community of believers, a community of people who have a passion for what we do, whatever. It's great to write a check, and, I know they'll take care of it and move on about your way, but I also want you to see that you've had an impact. I want you to feel as though you didn't just limit whatever you did to money or coats or whatever it is that the Lord put on your heart to donate, or time, or whatever it is you've done, prayer. I want you to feel as though it has a heavenly treasure attached to it, and that you have a feeling of a sense of self-worth added on to, because it should dignify all of us in our giving.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
Strategy-wise is to increase the number of people on the board who share this vision and even add more to it, even a greater vision. So we're still in the blocks. Yeah, we're still in the blocks.
Okay, so you're looking for synergy. If you had to describe one or two types that you're looking for your board, because you want to clearly have a board of diverse skills, people with diverse backgrounds. If you were to describe your A team of a board, for this stage in your development, what would that look like?
5 individuals, 4 of which have a reasonable, moderate, or extensive experience in nonprofits, especially 1 or 2 with understanding of the homeless environment as it stands today. Financial mind, you need a financial mind, you need a legal mind, an organizational mind, your prayer partner. You always need a prayer warrior, the rainmaker, and a fifth person who is whatever it is. It's the at-large person, but we just all work together, and we don't necessarily stay in our lane, but everybody respects the expertise of the other, so that we know what we're supposed to get accomplished in the course of 30 days, 60 days, whenever our meetings are. That will help us get a lot done. We've got a lot to do, a lot. And I also consider the residents here as partners. They're not just sitting here twiddling their thumbs on the next meal. They are part of the organizational body as well. They have nightly meetings, and the mission in itself is of great importance to each man here. Mm-hmm. So they have input.
Okay. So one last question before we go. Where do you see the Door of Hope in the next 5 years?
Preparing for new leadership. It'll be my 12th year, and there always has to be a succession plan in place. Hopefully that person's on the board and learning for the next 5 like I did. And then there'll be a shared vision, of those who came on the board, that individual. And right now, transform lives today are my concern. I guess I'm a little short-sighted.
It's kind of hard to see beyond 3 years, even if that far, especially in this environment.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have come to the end of our show, and I'd like to thank David Pendleton, the Executive Director of the Door of Hope Rescue Mission, for being my guest today. David, would you care to share any parting thoughts and tell us how we can reach you?
I want to thank everybody who participated in listening. Please continue to pray for us. Get the word out, what we're doing. If you're looking to volunteer or get further information, we have a GoFundMe page as well as a Facebook page, Door of Hope Rescue Mission. You can contact me at door_of_hope at att.net, or my name, David, T as in Peter, E-N, D as in David, L-E, T as in Tom, O-N 39 at gmail.com. Or you can call me directly, 773-624-0585.
Okay, great. And I also want to remind people who are listening that there's a slideshow going, and you can also get David's contact information in case you missed anything. His contact information is on the slideshow. So I want to thank everyone for listening to Nonprofit U Blog Radio Talk Show today. The show will be available for download within about an hour. Be sure to join us next week when our guest will be Carlos Luna of Chicago Veterans. Until then, take care. Have a great week. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye.
You got to get the mess. Huh?
Oh, I was just saying goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, nice haul.
Told ya, Macy's Backstage has perfect last-minute gifts.
With prices so low, you never need a coupon.
I scored the perfect makeup palette.
Super cute. I grabbed these cool drones for the guys.
Nice. Here's a handbag for Aunt Helen.
Found awesome toys for the kids.
Cookware for the budding chef.
Oh, and look what I got for Uncle Hank.
A puppy chew toy?
No, that's for Rex. They even have gifts for pets.
Well, Uncle Hank, he'd love anything we gave him.
Macy's Backstage, savings for everyday life. Details at macy'sbackstage.com. Wow, nice haul.
Told ya, Macy's Backstage has perfect last-minute gifts.
With prices so low, you never need a coupon.
I scored the perfect makeup palette.
Super cute. I grabbed these cool drones for the guys.
Nice. Here's a handbag for Aunt Helen.
Found awesome toys for the kids.
Cookware for the budding chef.
Oh, and look what I got for Uncle Hank.
A puppy chew toy?
No, that's for Rex. They even have gifts for pets.
Well, Uncle Hank, he'd love anything we gave him.
Macy's Backstage, savings for everyday life. Details at macy'sbackstage.com.